Hello, and how are you? I hope you're well, and thank you for joining Beautiful Literature and checking on us. We are very, very grateful. And if you're new here, we want to welcome you and to let you know that you are in the right place. And if you have been following up on what we've been doing, you realize that we have in the past been looking at the plot analysis or the plot summaries of the 14 chapters of the Fathers of Nation. And like I'd promised earlier, we will go into the analysis of the story of the text, and so that we are able to just get into what exactly we were supposed to pick from that book. And so we'll begin with the issue of the themes, and just for me to highlight on the major themes that are there. And maybe before I talk about the major themes, it's important for me to first of all talk about what are themes. I want to hope that all of us know what themes are, but for the sake of those who may not be very sure, I want to let us know that theme is the main idea that is in a text. What was that point that the author wanted to communicate to the readers when he was conceiving this point in his mind, when he was writing it down, when he was creating the characters? What is this exactly that would have wanted the message put across, that when my reader, my audience comes across this kind of literature, this kind of content, what do I want them to come across? What do I want them to take home? And that is what we call themes. Some are major themes, others are minor themes. And so therefore, in this context, we want to look at the major themes and the minor themes. And in the interest of time, I may not be able to go through all of them and in details. And therefore, I will invite you to check up the rest of the content and the details into our website, which is pinned on the comment section. You'll be able to see the first pinned comment. You'll see our website there. I encourage you to check it up, and you'll be able to pick all the themes, that is the major and the minor, and also you will be able to find even the references there. And what that means is that in this presentation, I do not want to go through even through so much and even telling you the pages that this illustration is on this page 5, page 20, look at it. For two reasons. One, you can find it on the website. Number two, I prefer to raise students who are not spoon-fed. Students who are able to just to bring out information for themselves. I don't like having a breed of students who actually cannot do anything on their own. And I want to believe that because in the past we've been through the analysis, and I think I went through the details very, very deeply, such that it was not rushed over. If you listen to the videos on the plot analysis, you'll be able to kind of find out what's going on. And so it is easy for you to pick the themes from there. And so you will forgive me if I don't get into the details and the names, of the pages and all that. I would encourage you to also get down to work and also do that for yourself. Maybe actually the examples I will give are only 2-3 examples in every instance, at most 4, and expecting that you will be able to find the others. Trust me, there's some themes that have so many illustrations, so many of them, such that by the end of the day, if we were supposed to discuss every illustration, we will spend hours and hours on one item, which we may not be able to do that. So therefore, this is just a guide. You are supposed to go through the text with the help of your teacher, with the help of your discussion mates, with your own help, and just go through them and find out, with this little guidance that I've gotten, am I able to pick the other illustrations? And so therefore, I would right now want to read for you the list of some, not all, some of the themes that you find in this text. Number one, that is very loud, that is very deliberate, you can see the author really wanted to bring that up, is the theme of poor leadership. And remember that these themes can be called by other names. It doesn't have to come up in this name. They can be in many other names. Different people will call them different things. And so therefore, when you hear like I'm calling it poor leadership, you can choose any other name. It doesn't have to be poor leadership. It can be misuse of power. It can be misuse of resources, because all that is intertwined. When you have poor leadership, it means there is someone who is misusing their power. There is someone who is misusing leadership, who is misusing resources. That's why we don't term you as a good leader. So we can call it poor leadership, but something like misuse of power or misuse of resources, those things, they keep intermingling at some point. The other point that also it's important for us to note, even as you look at this list of themes, is that most themes keep, let me use the common word of carrying one another, they will keep overlapping, they will keep being on each other's back. For example, when you're talking about poor leadership as a theme, you'll also look at the instances we give on poor leadership, and we're talking about the theme of suffering and oppression and death and all those things. When you talk about suffering, because of the poor leadership, therefore, then we have issues of suffering. And so the illustrations we are giving on suffering, they have been affected by poor leadership. If, for example, we're talking about poor leadership and corruption, those two, the illustrations are almost the same. And so that's why I keep saying that what is most important is for you to be able to understand the text so well. So by whatever name the theme comes in, even if it's a name you've never had, even if it's a word, a title you've never had in the name of a theme, as long as you have understood the text, trust me, any word, whatever they call whatever theme, you can handle it very well. And so therefore, I would want to go therefore into the list. Number 1 is poor leadership, like I had said earlier. You can have number 2 as corruption. Number 3, poverty. And then betrayal, it's another major theme. We have the plight of women. I will explain what that is, the plight of women. We will talk about despair and disillusionment. We can talk about tribalism or nepotism. We can talk about suffering. We can talk about oppression, and that is almost the same. We also can talk about change, stroke transition, and trust me, there are so many other things we can talk about. We can talk about culture. We can talk about family and love and marriage. All those things are many themes that are found in this book, but we may not be able to cover all of them. So we'll only be able to do a few, just very few, around 5 of them, and those 5 of them that we will do, if in case by along the way you come across a theme that is you're not comfortable with and you don't want me to handle it because probably I didn't handle it for whatever reason, or is not well handled in the notes, feel free to comment, to reach out, and to let me know that you'd want me to talk about it, because probably it's a concern for you. So therefore, can we go straight into the poor leadership? And like I had said, I will just highlight a few cases of illustrations of the same. Number 1, as we talk about poor leadership as a theme, this is a major theme because the author, that is Paul B Vitta, had intended to expose the poor leadership, the leadership of Africa. And that's why the text is being called the fathers of nations. That means he's focusing on the top cream. He's focusing on the people who are in top leadership. And even as we focus on the top leadership, in some instances, we've also been brought to attention the other minor leaders, the leaders who are a little bit down in the food chain, and therefore it is still part of leadership. So we're not just talking about the presidents, we're also talking about the other leaders. For example, like Newborn Walomu, who is a member of parliament. As we talk about the members of parliament and so on, that is part of leadership. And therefore we are not just, as we talk about the leaders, we're not just talking about the fathers of the nations, that is the heads of state. We'll also be talking about the other junior leaders. And so first, there's a statement that says that everything rises and falls on leadership. Everything rises and falls on leadership. If you find something has failed, a company has failed, an institution has failed, a class has failed, a family has failed, or a church is not doing well, anything that is not doing well, the rising and the falling of whatever, even your own life, the rising and the falling of your own life depends on the leadership that you have given your own life. Or in a family, how is the leadership of that family? How is the father who is the leader of that family, or the mother who is the leader of that family, carrying out their roles? If it's in a school, how is the principal? How are the teachers? How are the prefects handling whatever? So for anything to rise or fall, it depends on the leadership. And so in this text, we realize that the leaders have been challenged because of they have demonstrated poor leadership. And so we look at I'll go straight into the illustrations. So the first illustration I would want to share with us is what appears right at the beginning of the text. That is Professor Kimani. and he has a discussion with the daughter, and the discussion they're having is on how the nation is, how the country Kenya is, and the way things are not going on very well, especially on security. Security is horrible, and you see Professor Kimani and the daughter, the daughter is telling the father that actually at this point, even the things they learned from the instructor, who was telling them that it's important for you at a personal level to take responsibility on your security, because it is so bad out there, and you can be attacked anytime. And even the conversation they are having with the mom, she's very emotional, talking about why they should be very careful, because security is not okay. And so Professor Kimani does not understand, why would I take care of security whereas I have a government that should take care of that? And of course, the parents, the wife and the daughter are busy telling him that you cannot talk about the government taking responsibility, because it's not going to do that. It's not going to give you the security that you deserve, and therefore you need to take action and take care of it yourself. And so as we talk about poor leadership, we can see that happening from that conversation that we see. Number two, from that conversation, we also see that finally when the daughter dies, there is the issue of the roads, and the roads being in such a poor state, such that by the end of the day, this girl is not able to survive through that road accident. And Professor Kimani blames it on the leadership. He blames it on the government, that they were not able to give the conducive environment for the citizens, for them to live on. And so that's how the daughter ended up dying. So we see an illustration of poor leadership in that. Number three, or whatever number it is, we have newborn Walomu, who is also a leader, and we are told that he's, of course, what kind of a person he is: very moral, very arrogant, and actually very, very self-centered. And because of his desire even to marry Asia, who is older than him, and he doesn't seem to mind. And that, what kind of leadership is that? What kind of a leader is that? And even when you look at the conversation they're having with Professor Kimani in his office, and Professor Kimani is asking, why would you steal my wife? And then he says that you should not worry about your wife being stolen. The statistics about how many people who their wives have stolen is so high, such that you're not the only one who's lost his wife. And that is a very arrogant way of a leader to speak. And even before we come to him, we are told about his predecessor, that his predecessor died because of something very silly that had happened. But why did he find himself there? Because he was drunk. He was totally drunk, and on his way from his drinking spree, from a very funny small place where he was drinking, he lost his life. And so that is the kind of leadership you're talking about. And that's how newborn Walomu just found himself in leadership, through by-election, for him to join the vacancy that had been created by his predecessor, who died when he was drunk, and so on. And so in that conversation also between Professor Kimani and the daughter, we get to realize the issue about the members of parliament, and how they are very comfortable to raise their salaries, and to make sure that those salaries that are raised, they don't get taxed. And how do they do that? They make sure that they fall under allowances. They increase their allowances, because allowances are not taxed. And so for them, they'll be able to come up with higher salaries for themselves. He was calling it the legal coup, that the members of parliament, the leadership, is able to award themselves so much money at the expense of the other people. Okay. And so as we talk about that also, it takes us to Comrade Melusi, who brings out the issue of the poor leadership that has affected their country. And of course, there is so much to talk about that. I would want you to take some time and just look at that. What kind of a leader was their new leader? And after they threw away Smith, that is the colonial master, what were the expectations of the people? Did he meet those expectations? What kind of a leader was he? And actually, if you're looking at the illustrations on poor leadership, then that's a man to focus on. I will not go into the details, because I know you can go through that, but just look at what kind of a leader he is by refusing to award Comrade Melusi with something, just to say thank you for the work done when they were fighting the the colonialists. And even the leader from their group who was in power, who was in a government position, he was fired. And so really that is what a horrible way of dealing with the opposition, because by the end of the day, you create unnecessary tension and so on. And so of course, even the killing of the Ndebele people, because he decides that the Ndebele tribe, they are his enemies, they are his opponents, and he doesn't like them very much. And so therefore, he goes ahead to kill them and to have them roughed up and so on. That is poor leadership. Why would you punish a whole tribe because of your own insecurity, because of your own fears, and there is nothing really tangible? Remember, these people, the Ndebele people, were rioting at some point because their man was fired, but really it doesn't warrant killing. You shouldn't go killing people. But of course, even at some point, he also cleared ordered for the demolition of the slums. He said that he wanted to get rid of the diseases and the crime that is found in the slum areas. And remember some of these things. There was no disease, there was no crime that he was curbing. He was actually just punishing the the urban poor who had supported the opponents, the rivals, the opposition. And so really, what kind of a leadership is that? They are leaders of who are not able to perform as they expected, because as a leader, there are some things you can't do. As we move on to probably even Engineer Tahir, very briefly, that he considers the president very poor in leadership, that because at the beginning they were doing very well, even with the establishment of the Feast of Allah, which is a nuclear weapon production project and so on, and they were doing so well until when the Al-Qaeda, they struck the US, and the president was afraid that actually these people will come and retaliate. And before even anything happened, before he was even threatened, he actually dismantled this Feast of Allah. And of course, Engineer Tahir is very, very upset with him, because he says this man has removed from us the ability to protect ourselves, the ability to just make sure that we are safe. And now he's exposed us to the enemy. And to make the matters worse, he's the one who sits on the laps of the of the Western and listens to them. What kind of leadership is that? And so a man who is not able to be decisive and making sure that he orders his country well, then he does not qualify to be a leader, and he doesn't like him at all. And maybe while we are at that, I would also want us to look at the summit itself and what happened during the summit as we talk about the leadership. And do you think these leaders really did a good job as we talk about leadership? And maybe even to see how the summit came about, that even by the end of the day, but at the beginning of this whole thing, the way Omega, how did it come up? Because the donors, the people who give aids and money from the Western countries, had asked African countries to make sure that they do adjustments, that they do changes in their things. And so that's how Way Omega came up. And now they are in the summit for them to have a look at what the donors and the aids, the ones who give them aids, have decided. And when they are in this meeting, of course, Path Alpha comes up, but the discussions and how they handle these discussions actually shows there's very poor leadership, starting from the persons who are speaking, going on to what they're speaking about, President Bagaura, and him being chosen as the leader of the committee that decides whether they pick Omega or Path Alpha. President Bagaura himself had actually said from the beginning that personally, I have not read this book and I have no plans of reading it. And so therefore, he has no place, he has no right, he even has no moral authority to tell us anything about this book. But who do they choose to be the chair of that very important committee? Is this very president, because he's old and he's senior and they revere him. And so that is poor leadership. That why did he even leave his country to come, knowing very well he's going to discuss something that he has not even read? And by the way, we realize that actually the rest of the people, the rest of the heads of state, I think they were in the same category. They had not read that book. The document, the Way Omega, so that even when Path Alpha came, still there was nothing they could say about it. And to finalize on that, when it came to choose between Way Omega and Path Alpha, what did they do? They were tossing of coins. Can you imagine? How do you toss coins on such an important document? It is poor leadership. You have a bunch of leaders who actually do not want to sit down and look at a document and look at the merits and demerits, the good and the bad, the pros and the cons. What do? The leaders who will throw coins on, for them, any document that goes through, they really don't care, because we can't use coins to decide on a document that decides where our nation, our country goes, and so on. So if you look at this text, there's so much instances of poor leadership. And actually, even as we carry on with the other themes, you realize even when you talk about corruption, it has something to do with poor leadership and so on. So you'll hear me keeping on coming back to poor leadership. Please listen even to the next video, because I would want to go on to another video and still talk about themes, so that we are able to look at the other themes. But poor leadership is a major theme, and we'll keep coming back to it. So let me stop it at that, and I will see you in the next video. Please join me as we talk about the other themes. Thank you very much.